Vancouver's housing market, once a shining example of prosperity and rapid growth, has now entered a devastating crisis that threatens to undermine the very foundation of its real estate sector. What began as a routine issue with heating systems has evolved into a catastrophe, as heat pump failures are now causing widespread damage across thousands of condos in the city. This issue has created a ripple effect, not just for homeowners, but also for developers, banks, and the broader economy. With Vancouver's real estate market already under intense strain from rising costs, high interest rates, and political challenges, this new crisis is pushing the city to the brink. As winter approaches, the fallout from these heat pump failures is only expected to worsen, with condo owners already facing enormous repair costs, property devaluation, and financial strain. The situation is dire, and many are beginning to wonder how Vancouver can recover from this blow. The heat pump issue first emerged as a small problem, with a few isolated reports of malfunctioning units in newly built condo complexes. These systems, installed in many of Vancouver's high-rise condos as part of efforts to meet environmental standards and reduce energy consumption, were meant to be reliable, efficient, and long-lasting. However, within a few months, the problem escalated, with more and more condo owners reporting failures. What initially seemed like a minor inconvenience quickly morphed into a major crisis. As of late 2025, estimates from CMHC and UBC suggest that over 30% of condos built in the last 5 years are now facing significant issues with their heat pumps. This has left thousands of residents without adequate heating, especially as temperatures in Vancouver's winter months can drop to dangerous levels. For condo owners who have already spent a significant portion of their savings on these units, the cost of repairs and replacements is becoming an unbearable financial burden. The immediate consequences of this failure are staggering. The vast majority of affected condos are still under warranty, but many condo owners are discovering that the cost of replacing or repairing the heat pumps far exceeds what their warranties will cover. Some systems are so damaged that the entire unit needs to be replaced, leading to costs ranging anywhere from $15,000 to $30,000 per condo unit. For many homeowners, this is not just an unexpected expense, it's a financial crisis. With property values already under pressure from the broader housing market downturn, many are now facing a nightmare scenario where their properties are losing value at the same time that they're being hit with massive repair costs. This has created a sense of panic among Vancouver's condo owners, who feel trapped in a system that has promised them safety and security but has instead delivered them into financial chaos. The consequences of the heat pump crisis are not limited to individual homeowners. Vancouver's real estate developers, who have been riding high on the city's booming condo market for years, are now scrambling to manage the fallout. Many of these developers are finding themselves on the brink of bankruptcy as they try to cover the cost of replacing faulty heat pumps in their buildings. While some are able to negotiate with the manufacturers to cover the costs, others are being forced to take the full financial hit, which could lead to the closure of several high-profile development firms. According to recent reports from BNN and Bloomberg, at least 5 major Vancouver developers have already filed for bankruptcy, with many more expected to follow. These bankruptcies are not just an inconvenience for developers, they have far-reaching consequences for Vancouver's economy, especially as the city is heavily reliant on the real estate sector for employment and tax revenue. As developers struggle to stay afloat, Vancouver's banks are also feeling the heat. The city's major financial institutions, including RBC and Scotiabank, are pulling back on new construction financing as they grow increasingly concerned about the long-term stability of the housing market. Banks, which had once been eager to lend to developers and homebuyers alike, are now tightening their lending criteria. With fewer development projects being approved and fewer buyers able to secure financing, Vancouver's housing market is on the verge of a full-scale collapse. The ripple effect from the heat pump failures is sending shockwaves through the entire real estate ecosystem, further eroding confidence in the market. The political leadership in Vancouver and British Columbia has been notably absent in addressing the crisis. Premier David Eby and other government officials have yet to release a clear and effective response to the situation, which has only further inflamed frustrations among residents and developers. Many condo owners have voiced their anger, claiming that they were sold faulty products and misled by developers who failed to properly vet the heat pumps. Others have pointed to the government's failure to regulate building standards more effectively, allowing substandard equipment to be installed in new constructions. The issue has exposed deeper cracks in Vancouver's housing policy, which, for years, has prioritized speed and growth over quality control and sustainability. The government's inability to act decisively has left many feeling abandoned in the face of a crisis they never anticipated. The supply chain crisis, which has been exacerbated by the ongoing global trade disruptions, is also contributing to the heat pump problem. With construction materials in short supply and costs soaring, replacing the faulty heat pumps is not a simple task. The RBC has reported that construction costs have risen by 25% in the last year alone, and this has made it even harder for developers to meet their contractual obligations. With the cost of labor and materials rising, the already overextended developers are finding it impossible to replace the heat pumps quickly enough to prevent further damage. Meanwhile, many Vancouver residents are left to deal with the fallout on their own, unable to secure the help they need to repair their homes. As the crisis deepens, the human toll is becoming increasingly apparent. Condo owners are not just facing financial strain. They are dealing with severe emotional stress as they come to terms with the reality that their homes may never be the investments they once thought they were. Many first-time buyers, who spent years saving for a down payment and carefully selecting a property, are now seeing their hard-earned investments unravel before their eyes. Take the case of Sarah Thompson, a 32-year-old professional who purchased her condo just 3 years ago, believing she was securing a stable future. Now, she's facing the prospect of spending over $30,000 to replace her faulty heat pump, a cost she simply cannot afford. Sarah's story is tragically common in Vancouver, where more and more people are finding themselves in financial distress due to the crisis. With the property market under intense pressure and the repair costs mounting, many are feeling trapped in homes that are rapidly losing their value. For Sarah and others like her, the dream of homeownership has quickly turned into a nightmare. The long-term consequences of the heat pump crisis are yet to be fully understood, but the warning signs are clear. If Vancouver cannot find a way to resolve this issue and prevent further damage to its housing market, the entire city's real estate sector could face a complete collapse. The heat pump failure is just the latest in a series of missteps in Vancouver's housing strategy, and it may prove to be the final straw. For developers, homebuyers, and city leaders alike, the stakes have never been higher. The political response to this crisis will be critical in determining whether Vancouver can recover or if the damage will be irreparable. In the coming months, Vancouver will need to find a way to stabilize its housing market and address the growing crisis. Will the city's leaders take swift action to resolve the heat pump issue and restore confidence in the market? Or will they fail to act, leaving the housing sector to spiral into a deeper crisis? One thing is certain, the situation in Vancouver is rapidly deteriorating, and the time for decisive action is now. Without it, the city may soon face the complete collapse of its housing market. As homeowners, developers, and city leaders look to the future, the question remains, can Vancouver recover from this devastating crisis? Or is this the beginning of the end for the city's once booming real estate market? As Vancouver struggles to contain the fallout from the heat pump crisis, the situation continues to worsen with each passing day. The immediate financial strain on condo owners is only the beginning of a much larger issue that could ultimately affect the entire city's housing market. With thousands of condos across Vancouver facing similar issues with faulty heat pumps, the real consequences of this crisis are beginning to show. The damage to property values, the financial burden on homeowners, and the rising number of bankruptcies among developers are all contributing to a sense of despair within Vancouver's real estate sector. The ripple effects of this crisis are extending far beyond the individual condo owners. As banks tighten their lending practices and fewer new construction projects are approved, the city's economy is also feeling the strain. Real estate has been a driving force behind Vancouver's economy for years, but with the market in turmoil, it's unclear whether the city can recover. Banks such as RBC and Scotiabank have already begun to scale back their financing for new development projects. And as a result, the construction industry is also facing a sharp decline. Developers who once benefited from a booming housing market are now struggling to meet financial obligations as heat pump failures continue to drain their resources. Many developers are finding themselves on the verge of collapse, and some of the city's largest real estate firms are filing for bankruptcy. In addition to the mounting financial pressure on developers, condo owners are also facing a broader system failure that is wreaking havoc on Vancouver's real estate market. The supply chain for building materials has been severely disrupted by global trade issues, and costs for essential materials have skyrocketed. According to recent reports from StatsCan, construction costs in Vancouver have risen by more than 25% over the past year. The price of steel, concrete, and other vital construction materials has surged, leaving developers with no choice but to delay or even abandon projects. Meanwhile, the rising interest rates are making it harder for prospective buyers to secure mortgages, putting even more pressure on an already fragile housing market. But the most troubling aspect of this crisis is the failure of local and provincial government leaders to take decisive action. Premier David Eby's office, along with other municipal and provincial authorities, has been slow to respond to the crisis. Developers, homeowners, and banks are all waiting for clear guidance on how to address the heat pump failures and how the city will help mitigate the financial burden on condo owners. Instead, they've been met with vague statements and bureaucratic inertia. The lack of leadership has left many feeling abandoned, unsure of how to navigate a crisis that is spiraling out of control. It's important to understand the scope of the crisis. The initial focus was on the heat pump failures, but now it's clear that the issues run much deeper. Vancouver's entire real estate system, from construction to financing to government oversight, is failing. The city's housing market is under severe stress, and it's only a matter of time before the cracks become unmanageable. The political contradictions surrounding Vancouver's housing policies are a key factor in the city's ongoing struggles. While the provincial government has introduced measures like the foreign buyer ban to cool the market, these policies have only led to more confusion, making it harder for both developers and buyers to navigate the complex housing landscape. The foreign buyer ban was meant to lower demand, but instead, it has created a supply shortage in the market, driving up prices in the very areas where affordability is most needed. The human cost of this crisis cannot be overlooked. While the financial consequences are clear, the emotional toll on condo owners is just as severe. Many people who bought their homes just a few years ago are now watching their investments evaporate before their eyes. In some cases, condo owners are facing repair bills that far exceed what they paid for their homes, leaving them financially devastated. Take, for example, John and Lisa Stevens, a couple who bought their condo in downtown Vancouver just 3 years ago. They were excited to start their lives in one of the city's most desirable neighborhoods. But now, they are facing a $25,000 repair bill to replace their failed heat pump. Their property value has already dropped by 15%, and with the market continuing to decline, they fear their home will soon be worth less than they paid for it. John and Lisa's story is not unique. Across Vancouver, countless condo owners are facing the same grim reality. The emotional stress and anxiety caused by the heat pump crisis is compounded by the lack of support from both developers and government officials. Condo owners are left to fend for themselves, with no clear path forward. Many are being forced to make difficult decisions whether to sell their homes at a loss, take on enormous debt to cover the repair costs, or risk losing everything. For those who have invested their life savings into Vancouver's once booming real estate market, the future is uncertain at best and bleak at worst. Many are now questioning whether the dream of homeownership in Vancouver is still possible or if they've been sold a false promise. While Vancouver's government continues to dodge accountability, developers are slowly realizing the true cost of their decisions. The once promising condo market has now become a financial quagmire for many developers who built their projects on faulty promises of long-lasting, energy-efficient systems. In the wake of the heat pump crisis, many developers are finding themselves exposed, with no clear path to recovery. Some are resorting to drastic measures, including laying off workers and reducing operations in a desperate attempt to keep their businesses afloat. Others have already thrown in the towel, filing for bankruptcy and leaving their projects unfinished. This is a blow not only to developers but also to the thousands of construction workers, engineers, and real estate professionals who relied on the industry for their livelihoods. With Vancouver's real estate sector unraveling at an alarming rate, the implications extend far beyond the housing market. The city's entire economy is at risk as the fallout from the heat pump crisis spreads. Vancouver has long relied on its real estate sector as a key driver of economic growth, but the collapse of the housing market threatens to destabilize the entire province. If developers continue to go bankrupt and banks pull back on financing, the construction industry will slow to a crawl, and Vancouver's economy will suffer. The government's inaction in the face of this disaster has made it clear that the city's leadership is not equipped to handle a crisis of this magnitude. The real threat to Vancouver's future is not just the heat pump failures, but the broader failure of its housing market. If the city does not take immediate and decisive action, the consequences will be catastrophic. The real estate sector, which has been a major source of jobs and wealth in the region, could collapse entirely. Condo owners will continue to suffer, developers will go bankrupt, and banks will tighten their grip on lending, further reducing the availability of credit. As the housing market crashes, property values will continue to plummet, and the wealth of many Vancouverites will be wiped out. Vancouver's once thriving economy will fall into a deep recession, and the social fabric of the city will be irreparably damaged. So, what can be done to resolve this crisis? Vancouver's leadership must act quickly to address the heat pump failures and take steps to restore confidence in the housing market. Developers must be held accountable for the faulty systems they have installed, and condo owners must be compensated for their financial losses. The provincial government must also take immediate steps to stabilize the housing market by implementing policies that address both supply and demand issues. Without urgent action, Vancouver risks facing a housing collapse that will leave lasting scars on its economy and its people. For condo owners who are still reeling from the heat pump failures and the financial strain of the crisis, there is little hope on the horizon. Many are already considering selling their homes at a loss, while others are weighing the costs of continuing to hold on to properties that are rapidly depreciating. The emotional toll of this crisis is immense, and the uncertainty surrounding Vancouver's housing market has left many feeling hopeless. If you're watching this video, it's time to take action. Don't wait for the crisis to spiral further out of control. The future of Vancouver's housing market is hanging in the balance, and it's up to the city's leaders to take decisive action before it's too late. We'll keep you updated as this crisis unfolds. Stay tuned for more information, and don't forget to leave a comment with "Hey Shown" and subscribe to stay informed on this crucial issue.